Hey guys, welcome back for more Community Starcraft 2 videos. As you can see on the screen, it is PvT day, and we'll be going over a few replays from some IEM games that are a little older than I had hoped, but still they are pretty relevant in today's meta, and I think will remain relevant for quite a while. But yeah, we're going to be going over pretty much the same stuff that we've done before in other strategy videos, and there's not too much time to waste, so let's just go ahead and jump straight into this game and we'll get started. So, this first game is actually going to be between Rain and Jakshi. We're going to be taking a look at it, obviously, from the Protoss perspective, so we're going to be taking a look at some Rain games. Rain is very well known for being very passive and often very stubborn, so this is going to be the first little style that you can learn that's probably the easiest of the three that we're going to be going over. Now, he's opening with a gateway and 2 gases. This is always a very stable opener. You can opt-to-mine with either 2 or 3 in either of these geysers. You can see he's actually only mining with 4 total. It would be a little bit better for him to actually switch it up and mine with 2 in this gas and just spread them out, but either way, not a big deal. Obviously he's fighting Jakshi, and we won't pay too much attention to the Terran until it's actually necessary. So we'll just get through the opener really fast, as we've already gone through openers before. He just puts out a Zealot to try and deny any little eBay blocks here that can happen. So sometimes the Terran will be really annoying and building right here to block you from taking your expansion. But the whole purpose of PvT, especially in this early parts of the game, is really just to make sure you're not getting attacked by anything crazy, take an expansion, and start getting your tech up. So right about at this stage of the game, you can take a look at the timer. This is when the next stage of tech is probably going to start coming down, and you want to put out at least a handful of units just to defend yourself from any sort of weird attacks. You can scout with this Mothership Core. I really wouldn't recommend it, and even Rain is not going to get any information. As you can see, this is his vision right now. Any good Terran will be able to push that away. It's just too much of a risk. Just keep that at home. So here comes the robotics down here for Rain, and almost every build is going to probably want to open up with the robotics. Forge immediately afterward is really good as well for upgrades, so try to mix in forges at good times. We'll try to pay a little bit of attention to those in the games that we review today, but right now this is pretty good. So you can see Warp Gate's finishing up. He only has 1 gateway. Sometimes you want a little bit more, but you can just get away with 1, only if you produce a lot of units like this. So the idea here is that he's going to be able to defend himself with these little set of units, with his extra tech that's coming up, and with his Mothership Core being able to overcharge his Nexus. So overcharge is very important in this matchup, and you want to use it as wisely as possible. Don't throw down an overcharge for something stupid like 2 or 3 Marines. Try to save it only for when you really need it, because if you waste it and the Terran comes in with a bigger army later, you're going to wish that you had saved it and maybe you'll die. So keep a hold on that. Rain's going to go Observer right off of his Robo right away, and that's really smart. And the first upgrade you usually want to get on these forges is armor upgrades. And the reason why is because you want your Zealots to be able to take a lot of damage, and you want other units to be able to put out the damage for you. So if you go Storm, or if you go Colossus, the attack upgrade really isn't going to make that big of a difference, or at least not as much as the armor upgrades early in the game. So with Rain, and like he's always done, he just makes a lot of observers. He always sends 1 into Scout to figure out what's going on. You want to make sure there's nothing too crazy going on like mech. Most of the time you're going to see bios, so that's what he sees. There's a lot of barracks, a whole bunch of Marines in here, Starport coming up just for medevacs, so nothing too crazy here. But the observers are really just so you can see everything else that's out on the map, so that you'll know where and when attacks are coming from. When attacks are coming from? I don't know, I probably should reverse those, but here we go. What you're gonna see this quite a bit of times in your own games. There's going to be a lot of Marines and stuff moving out at a pretty early time. What you need to be able to hold this off is one of 3 things. The first thing you can use is force fields on your sentries, so we're actually going to see Rain try and buy some time with that. Why can't I drag? Anyway, but as these pushes grow, and especially later in the game, you do need some area of effect damage, and that's why he's putting out these Colossus. So you need either Colossus or Storm. Sometime around maybe 9 minutes, a little bit afterward is okay, but you do need to be prepared to handle little forces like this, because if you don't get force fields here, look at Rain's army. It looks so pathetic, but the only reason it's going to work is because he has tools to allow him to buy time between force fields on his sentry and the overcharge on his Mothership Core. So we'll see how he handles this. Jakshi's gathering down here, obviously. And he has the observer out here, and he was able to see everything that was coming, so he has plenty of time to prepare for this. And watch how Rain handles this. He's just going to wait. He's not going to waste any energy. He doesn't have to. Now he drops one force field, and he says, okay, well, if you want to keep coming up, then I can easily chop off about 5 or 6 of these units with the second force field and kill these easily. So he just puts one down. Don't waste any energy that you don't have to. So good Terrans will know this and be like, okay, this is stupid. I'll just waste units if I go up there anymore. And he just turns right back around as soon as he can. So good management there by Rain. Now all of a sudden the Colossus is out, and there's no way the Terran can commit now if the Protoss controls this correctly. So the one Colossus is out. He's starting his +1 upgrade for his attack, and getting Blink as well to supplement his Colossus. Now Rain's going to run a little bit of a weird style in this game in the sense that he just makes Colossus, and that's basically all he does. He just makes his Colossus and he protects it from the Vikings and stuff like that. Another big problem that can happen in this matchup, especially with Colossus openers, is drops can really get out of control, especially two-pronged attacks. So they'll send in one group of medevacs here. It can be one, it can be two, it can be a whole bunch, and then they'll try to run the rest of their forces in the other side. So you need to be aware of things like that and be prepared to deal with those. A good way to spot is either to have an observer in a path that they will usually fly medevacs in, so you can see this observer saw everything once again, and then you can prepare by warping in. You can place pylons at the edge of your base so you'll get vision quicker. And then try your best to deal with these kind of two-pronged attacks, whether that's keeping the mothership just to overcharge this base and maybe a couple units and sending everything back to deal with the drop, or to deal with the drop as minimally as possible. Say like 4 Stalkers or so, the overcharge, and some Zealot warp-ins or something like that. So we'll see how he handles this. Drop comes down here, and he doesn't want to get multi-pronged here, so he's leaving his Colossus and 2 sentries back here to try and protect from this. We'll see if he's paying attention well enough to deal with it. Second prong comes in, is trying to target down the Colossus, and beautiful force fields there to keep that Colossus alive. In the meantime, overcharge, Stalker's trying to kite this army the best they can. So he's really not losing anything here, controlling really well. You can see how he shut down that drop. So you really want to try and study the way that these pro gamers fend off these multiple attacks like that, because they can really rip you apart if you start to mess up. So, still making Colossus here, and like I said, that's all Rain's going to do in this game, and this is something you can do in your own games if you want to run this kind of style. They can make a bunch of Vikings and deal with this okay, but at the same time, you just have to make sure you get good engagements and that you deal with the Vikings well enough with your Stalkers. So, we just saw an Observer get sniped down here, that's what that scan was for, but still, this Observer sees everything, so Rain knows everything that's going on with the dropships. He also has another observer here to spot for drops, so you can see Rain's information is just airtight. He knows absolutely everything all the time. And when these medevacs come in, since he researched Blink, you can get on top of these things since you know they're coming in with your observer. If you can snipe down full medevacs right here, that's 10 supply that dies instantly just because you knew it was coming. So information is definitely power, and this is the biggest advocate of that matchup in the sense that if you know what's going on and you can see exactly where it is and you can prepare for it, you're going to get huge leads because of it. Now this Terran obviously has good reactive, so I don't think he's going to get the medevac. Oh, never mind, he got it. So that's 10 supply down the drain for free just because Rain knows what's going on. Totally outweighs the cost it took to produce this observer. Again, still just putting out Colossus, trying to get his upgrades the best he can. He's kind of slacking on those a little bit. He should start up here in just a second, I'm sure. He's actually adding a second forge just so we can keep up in upgrades. And you don't ever want to get buried in upgrades because Bio is one of those unit compositions that scales incredibly well with upgrades. And if you don't stay equal or ahead, you're going to start getting into fights where your Zealots do absolutely nothing. Now the next little push out here, he's trying to deny the gold here. And note his positioning. Let's just pay attention to army positioning in this fight. These 3 Colossus are obviously going to do most of the damage. These Zealots are going to do absolutely nothing. So this army composition for the Protoss right now is basically 3 Colossus, 8 Stalkers, and a couple of sentries. We'll just pay close attention to how he uses the terrain and how he uses his position against the Terran opponent. And you need to pay attention to stuff like this in your own games as well. So the army's gathering up, and if he were just to not micro this at all, he would probably just get run over. The Vikings come down, and as soon as the Vikings start to come out, while the Vikings are chasing his army, he blinks the Stalkers forward, gets a Viking, and then tries to stand back as much as he can. Now all of a sudden the army's here, the Colossus could splash all over these Marines, you could place force fields here and maybe kill a bunch of Marines. So this is how you need to kind of massage these battles out, so that the position and the little opportunities favor you rather than favoring them. You can see here's the Colossus, just wasting those Marines. He baits his stim out, and he continues to fire with his Colossus the best he can. A Time Warp all over these things. Notice how the Stalkers are only hitting Vikings. Stalkers hitting this bio is not going to do much of anything at all. You want the Colossus to hit the bio, and you want the Stalkers just to hit the Vikings, if you're just running a style where you make Colossus and try to protect them. So Rain's doing a fantastic job of that at this point. This base is totally denied because Joxi just got his army absolutely decimated there. Resources lost, you can see. Protoss is way, way ahead in that, only because he was able to position correctly and because he kind of massaged out that fight. If he just attacked, all of his Zealots would do basically nothing. He'd lose them for free, his Colossus would get killed by Vikings, and his Stalkers wouldn't be doing their job. So we'll continue to fast forward here until the next important part. Note that the upgrades are still going for the Protoss here. You want to stay on top of those the best you can. Terran's about to be just a little bit ahead in upgrades, so we can see 1-1, but 2-1 is almost done. And then you can do this with your little Stalker groups to kind of get out there, see what's going on, try to pick off what you can. Here's another big drop coming out here, and of course Rain's Observer is going to see this, so you'll notice that Rain starts to react to this as soon as he notices what's going on. Starts to pull his Stalkers back, he could even blink them into the main, but he starts to pull his Colossus back as well, and that's only because he has this information. So this far, pretty much all Rain has done is make observers, know what attacks are coming, and make sure that he controls the fight well. And if you do that, and of course keep up on bases and stuff like that, which we've talked about in the macro video, you'll be in fantastic shape. So we'll go ahead and fast forward here. This game is almost over because Rain is starting to get way, way ahead. And notice his Colossus count. It's absolutely huge. 6 Colossus. That's insane against these bio. There's actually a 7th one that just came down to join the army. Let me slow this down just a little bit. So again, seems like there's a lot of Vikings out. That's 11 Vikings. But if you just walk your Colossus away, use your Stalkers just to focus down the Vikings, and then let the Colossus hit the bio, you'll be fine in these fights. And we'll watch Rain do that again here in just a sec. Trying to get a little more Templar here, and that's another thing, is you eventually will want to switch up your supply into something else. Typically by the end of the game you're going to be on Colossus Templar with good upgrades. Is going to be the most of your unit composition, so switch into that eventually, but for the most part these Archons aren't done. It's just Stalker Colossus in this fight, so I want to show how this composition can work. So here we go, Colossus splashing all over the bio. Notice that he's really only controlling his Stalkers right now. He only has his Stalkers selected. You can see those little red marks around his Stalkers. He's just focusing down these Vikings one by one, and if you kill the Vikings, then that basically means that the Terran can't win this fight. So again, more battles going on here. Stalkers blink onto the Vikings once again. Colossus is just shredding this bio, and you can see the supply lead is enormous for Rain right now. And that pretty much effectively ends the game. I mean, Rain just attacks across the map and wins at this point, so we'll just jump into the next replay. But the whole idea there was you basically need area of effect, or you need splash damage against these bio armies. And you need to make sure you kind of massage out the battles so that they favor you and that your positioning is good and that all your units are doing the right job. So the next one we're going to watch here is Classic versus Pult. It's again on Habitation Station. I wanted to steer clear of all of the really heavily blink favored maps because I think those are going to start to go away pretty soon. And I don't want to be like, yeah, go blink every game, and then there's like no maps to go blink on. So we'll watch Classic here play against Pult. Again, Protoss is in the top left here. Classic is also from SK Telecom T1, and they have really good Protosses, so watch the GSL and Pro League if you want to learn from those guys. So the openers aren't going to be too dramatically different here. There will be some variations, and I will show some little different things you can do, but these basically follow the opener videos that I posted for PvT. So if you want more information about the openers these guys are running, or at least versions that are really similar to it, just watch that video. I mean, it's in the same playlist as this one, but you can also look it up. It's just PvT openers. But for the Terran, so this is something we didn't see in the previous game. The Terrans are almost always going to open with a Reaper and then a Command Center right afterward. And there's a Reaper right now. There's a Scouting SCV. You need to make sure that you run builds that have something to deal with this Reaper out in time. Zealots aren't really going to deal with it, so you need a Stalker or a Mothership Core out by the time that the Reaper gets there. So that eliminates any builds like Nexus first, or pretty much anything that goes Nexus before Cybernetics Core. So just go Gateway Cybernetics Core in pretty much every one of your games, so that you can deny that Reaper. So Classic takes a Nexus and he takes a second gas, and notice that his Mothership Core arrives just as the Reaper starts to come into his base, and he controls it well enough so that if the Reaper tries to get past him, he's going to die. So a little bit of a dance here between a Reaper and a Mothership Core, and then Polt thinks, oh, maybe the Mothership Core started to slack off, maybe he'll try to go back in, and of course Classic is on top of it. The only purpose that this Reaper serves is to try and kill probes where it can, but the most thing that it wants is information, and right now Polt has nothing. So he sees the gist of the base, but he doesn't know if there's any tech coming down, doesn't know what else the follow-up is. And we're going to see the follow-up here in just a second, which is going to be a Stargate. So he's going to go into Oracle, he's going to try and harass Polt just a little bit. He's going to kind of have this use, this is going to be kind of used for information as well, just to verify that it is the normal bio play, it's not mech or anything weird like that. But if you can kill SCVs, that's obviously a bonus. Nexus is now done. Stargate is now done as well. Oracle's going to be chrono boosted out and get over there as soon as possible. Not a whole lot to say right here, but you do want to start thinking about your next transition right about now. So there should be alarms going off in your head saying, the Oracles are nice, but they're not going to last me the whole game, so I need to think about what my next step is. I would recommend a Robo or a Twilight Council to get something like Charge and Storm. We'll see what Classic opts to do. And here it is, actually. Classic is running a very different style. The different style that he's running is this third base is at 640. It's ridiculously early. And the whole idea here that you can try to experiment with just a little bit is that the Oracle is going to be enough to have Polt keep some army in his base. So if he has to keep these Marines here, maybe make some turrets and stuff like that, he won't have enough army to pressure this base enough to kill it if Classic controls correctly. So let's see what he's able to do. Now Polt, I'm not sure if he's going to see the Oracle or not. I don't think so. Yeah, he just sees the core flying around. But even still, Classic should have enough units to hold this off. He might have to overcharge. He might have to do a couple of other things to hold this. But the whole idea here is that if you get the Oracle in there, you're going to force him to have to keep units back at his base. And you can keep this third safe for quite a long time, up until the point where it's fully mining and actually paying off for you. So Polt comes up. This is the situation you probably want to overcharge, and yeah, he does it right away, just because he doesn't have enough units. So he can push that away for the time being. I think the Nexus killed 2 Marines. I can't see a kill count while it's producing stuff. Oracle's coming back in here, still trying to be annoying. You don't ever want to lose that, because then that kind of eliminates the whole reason why he's keeping army back in his base. So don't get too reckless with that. Just kill what you can and just get away. So you might think, 3 kills, it's not very good. It's actually totally doing its job right now. Polt should realize very soon that this is being mined from, and he should know now. So now he's saying, uh-oh, this is pretty bad. I need to start doing something about this. And Classic, again, if just make stuff, make units, and just try your best to hold this off. So if he gets good force fields here, he really shouldn't lose anything. We'll see if he handles that correctly. 2 force fields, just a trap. He loses a sentry, which is kind of unfortunate. He doesn't lose a second one, though, so that's fine. His follow-up is going to be Blink, so he's going to play a very gateway-heavy style this game. Something you don't see very often, though. But the idea is just that he has so much tech, or rather he has so much economy, that he doesn't need much tech. He can just kind of make stuff and stay relatively even on upgrades, and that'll put him in a good position in the middle of the game. Now the Oracle is still out. He still does want to keep that Oracle at least semi-active to keep the Polt army back in the base. But since he since he didn't have an imposition to go keep Polt's army back in his base, he just decides to use a Revelation instead. And you can see that that allows Classic to see Polt's army all the time. And as we know from the last game, preparing for attacks and stuff like that is a million times easier if you know exactly what's going on. So all these units have vision on them. I actually didn't know that, if you pick up infected units or not. Yeah, that's pretty cute. If you pick up the units that have the Revelation on them with the medevacs are not revealed. That's kind of cool. But again, just trying to mitigate as much damage as possible with his Nexus Cannon. Kind of floating around with that Oracle, seeing if he needs to use it or not. He realizes that he doesn't, so he's still fine. Going to start to get into the stage of the game where a lot of gateway units are on the field. And since you're going with mostly gateway units, you might as well get the upgrades for him on this Twilight Council. So he has Blink, soon to have Charge, and all he needs to do here is just engage properly with these force fields and with his Blink Stalkers, and he should be okay. Stalker's doing really well against this so far. Needs to be a little more careful about keeping those units around, but at the end of the day, Polt's just running out of units too quickly, and Classic is safe once again. Now look at the Protoss supply. Classic starts to take a little bit of a lead here because he's able to make that third base pay off for him. That early third nexus anyway. So from this point, we're going to get into a little bit later stage of the game. Now these armies are starting to get a little bit out of control. I mean, Stalkers and Sentries won't do it forever, so you do need that splash damage. And again, we'll just watch a little fight here. There's not too much to say about this. It's just stuff fighting each other. The good thing about having Blink is you can chase down armies, so if they ever try to disengage, or if you need to disengage, that's always your option. So, behind this, like I was talking about before, you do need some sort of area of effect damage at some point, because you can't deal with those forever. So you will want to grab Storm or Colossus to start dealing with this. These trades are honestly not that great for Classic. I think he's getting a little bit too hasty here, so he starts to get pushed back. But the worker supply, I believe, is in his favor. Yeah, by over almost 20. So Storm should be getting research here any second. I think he's actually making a mistake by not getting that right away, having too much to focus on. The other side of this is the Warp Prism, which we'll see here in the next little bit. The Warp Prism is going to turn this into a game of counterattacks, and both sides are going to be counterattacking a lot at these high levels. So what you're going to want to do is, when the Terran is out on the map, if you have a Warp Prism out, just try to send stuff into his base and keep him busy as long as you possibly can, so that you can prepare for attacks back at home a lot easier. And I know that doesn't really make too much sense, but the idea is that if you put units in his base, and this is awkward, you see both of these guys passing each other in the night. But the idea here is that if you can keep him busy with stuff back in his own base, and if he's losing workers and stuff like that, then he has to focus on two places, while you have to focus on two places. But the idea is that the Terran always wants to make you focus on two places anyway, as he has a drop coming up here and another force pushing in here. So you might as well even the odds while you can. A little bit of a drop cleanup going on here as well. Again, the Oracle's still being useful at cleaning up little groups of Marines. You don't want to lose it if you possibly can, so he's good at keeping that alive. In the meantime, there's going to be a lot of attacks coming down here, so I think I'm just going to let the game play, and we'll see how this goes down in real time. Medevac's kind of running away here. Now Classic is setting up a bunch of different warp endpoints. He has a pylon down here, he has a warp prism up here, so that he can do little maneuvers where he warps in a few units down here, he can send them into the Terran third base, and then once the army comes down to recover, he can start warping in with his warp prism, because the army's going to take forever to get there, and that's exactly what we're going to see. So Zealots are coming down here, trying to distract, trying to pull the army away. Notice how he's being pulled away. All of a sudden the warp prism comes in, and surprise, now you have like 10 Zealots in your base. I guess that's 8, but now he has to deal with this on two fronts. And you could also do other things with this attack as well. You could start to get position with this army and try to set up some storms, or maybe kill this base, or kill some workers over here or something. Losing Zealots just to kill workers and just to move his army around is totally okay, as long as you don't overdo it. So again, you can see more counterattacks here. Bolt's going to get this Nexus, or at least make it cancel, and there we go. So this matchup can definitely break down into a multitude of different counterattacks and little harassments from both sides. So still, Classic cancels the base of Pult, so you can see it going back and forth here. What we have so far, or at least right now, is the Templar are now being carted around in Warp Prism, and that's something that you want to pay attention to as well. In the Warp Prism, the idea is that the Templar can get good position with whatever kind of storms that they want. This is a little bit advanced, but it is something you can mix into your own games if you find yourself having trouble dealing with EMP. So Classic is going to attack in here. Notice the Templar and the Warp Prism are going to drop out and land storms as soon as they can. And this gives them perfect positioning, because most of the Templar are just too far away to land good storms. But now that we're going to start seeing the storms coming down here, we're going to see how effective that actually is. Assuming you're able to land good storms here. Kind of overstormed this a little bit, but that's okay. And what I would also like to see is maybe a second Warp Prism, just so he could warp in stuff over here. You can see that, oh, that's an Oracle. But a second Warp Prism up there would have been fantastic. This is another problem as well that I see a lot of people make this mistake of. You never want to attack into planetaries as Protoss. So what I would actually recommend for Classic here is not to attack this planetary. Just come back here and try to eliminate this base, because the planetary can take so much damage for so long. It's just really not worth it. Don't attack into planetaries if you can help it. And you'll even see, like, this tiny little bit of units is actually going to push this away, because Classic spent so much time killing the planetary. And granted, yeah, it's nice to kill a planetary, but at the same time, I mean, you don't want to give away that many units just to kill a planetary. So Classic's starting to get pushed back here just a little bit. because he was able to get such good fights, and he was able to move Polt's army around back and forth with these little Warp Prism harassments and harassments over here at the third base. Then Polt was out of position, and from this point on, Classic basically closes the game out. You can see that the income is well in favor of Classic at this point. He has he's about to have 4 bases mining, and he has a ton of money in the bank. So Classic pretty much closes this game out eventually. And you'll also notice that he didn't produce a single Colossus in this game as well. So it shows that you don't need both of them necessarily, but that's only if you're doing really good work with one or the other. I guess we'll watch the rest of this fight here. We'll watch some SCVs get roasted, watch some Zealots kill some Marauders and whatnot. But there's just not a whole lot more to say about this game, so we'll just let it run out since you guys want to watch Terran stuff die, just for that encouragement. Yeah, that's enough. So, yeah, we've seen really different styles in both of these games so far. For the first one was obviously just make Colossus and kind of hold out and use your information against them. And then the second one was a very different style of taking a super fast third and the idea of counterattacks and stuff like that. We're going to show a third game here from Liquid Hero. We're going to focus a little bit more on storm control and army control in this one, since that's what he showcases in most of his games. So Liquid Hero, of course, a very, very good Protoss player. He's actually really known for his PvT, I would say. Very creative player as well. Really cool to watch him. He actually plays in the Pro League as well. He does play in WCS America, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if he's still in it or not. I tend to only watch things in Korea, so it's probably bad on me. But again, you can see the Terran player opening up with a Reaper. They always want to get that Reaper to get in there and get some information. Protoss back home, you can make a Zealot to try and deny this expansion. But of course, if the expansion, or rather if there's no eBay or anything, you can just cancel the Zealot and start the expansion, which is what he did. And then he'll still have his Mothership Core out in time to deal with any Reapers that might come. So this is all really normal stuff. There's not too much to say about openers and PvT. But like I've said, I think this is the third time now. If you want more information on the opener specifically, just check out the video for it. Go ahead and minimize that. Now here is going to do something a little bit different. He's also opening Stargate, but he's going to proxy it so that he's going to put it out on a map where the opponent won't expect it. So he's going to fly Oracles in later, see what he can get done. Sometimes this can work and sometimes it can't, but we'll show that regardless of if it works or not, you can still make it do something for you. So he's going to start the Oracle. He'll chrono boost it, of course, so you want to get those out as fast as possible. This is going to be kind of a different opener for both of these players. 4GG is a very unusual Terran, since he doesn't play really standard and straight up like Polt does. He'll do a lot of different weird things, and what he's doing is actually a mind drop. So the good thing about the Stargate nowadays, especially producing Oracle, is that you do have the detection on it. So at bare minimum, I would say by this stage of the game, about 7 minutes, you want to have one or the other. Either Oracles or Observer to see detected or cloaked units. Man, I'm like totally stumbling here. This is pretty bad. But so 4GG is going to come in here, drop a mine. You definitely want to react to these the best you can. And Hero kind of, yeah, he does pretty well. Just only losing one probe here. There's also, of course, a second drop. You don't want to lose any probes to these mines if you can help it. Trying to bait out the mine shot, and he gets it. So dealt with these really well. Of course, the Oracle's back in the other base being shut down by these Marines. So the Oracle's really not doing a whole lot for him in terms of worker kills here. And he kind of bails out there pretty early, maybe just afraid of getting hit by a mine. But the good thing about these, of course, is that they do have the detection, so you can just turn that on and kill these mines if you need to. So that's one good safety point of these Stargate openers. It's why I outlined them in the video, and it's why you see a lot of pros running them as well. So you can kill these mines no problem. And of course, back here in the main, he does have an observer out to kill that. So we're going to generate into... Generate? That doesn't make sense. We're going to transition into a more normal game here. Here's the robotics bait coming down for Hero again. So he just wants to get that splash damage out to deal with the high Marine count. And he's just double checking with these Oracles that it is just going to be standard bio. And with this many Marines, it doesn't make sense to have anything else. So the Oracle, again, gets a revelation on there. He is kind of sloppy. He does lose it. But at least if this army starts to move out, he'll have all the information in the world to make sure that he knows that. So you can see, he can still see the Marines there. So like I've been harping on a lot throughout these videos, information means so much in this matchup. And he's going to lose that. Okay, no. So yeah, information means a lot in this matchup. You always need to know where their army is and what they're doing. If if you don't have it, that could kill you. So I can't really stress that enough. So of course, Hero did see these Marines moving across because of the revelation, so he knows they're coming. There's also a second drop here, and you can see there's another multi-pronged play. Like we were talking about before, if you have to deal with attacks on two fronts, you need a solution on both sides. The one solution is going to be an overcharge on the Nexus just to prevent anything from running in here and killing him. But the second solution is going to be just to pull his whole army to deal with this little drop and kind of hammer away at that. So attacks coming up here. He can definitely use his Colossus and Force Fields against these Marines, so that's pretty good. But he'll be totally fine. I mean, he really shouldn't lose too much here. If he controls the Colossus properly, he shouldn't lose that. That's the most important part. So again, Hero holds against these little timings. Or more specifically, the Protoss holds, and it was mostly because he had the information that it was coming and where it was going. So he did see with his observer right there, once again, it's right over the army. He did see the medevac load up. He should be very privy to this information. Shouldn't have any trouble dealing with that. Again, more little warp-ins, more stalling tactics to try to deal with that. Still dealing with the two-pronged harassment right here, so you do want to have the Colossus or the Storms out to deal with that. 4GG with some cute micro here. And here comes the counter to the Colossus. So what Hero has done so far, he's shown Colossus, he's shown Stargate. This could very well be something like a Phoenix Colossus build that the Terran could not be expecting, and we'll get to this expansion in just a second. But what Hero's done is he's used the one Colossus to hold these attacks, and then he's forced 4GG to start making Vikings. But the idea here is that this is kind of an old school theology. You don't really see this very often anymore, but the idea is that he's going to force him to make Vikings, and then he's going to switch into Charge and Templar tech so that the Vikings are useless in battles. So you want to think about your tech transitions this way as well. And of course, the upgrades are very important. I really can't stress those enough. It's right here. I was trying to center my vision on that, but it didn't quite work. So we can see Hero, he does have the one Colossus, and it makes him look like he's going to play Colossus throughout the game. But then he's going to switch immediately back into Templar and Storm and make those Vikings worthless and make his investment in those Vikings really not pay off throughout the duration of this game. So Hero is taking a hidden expansion up here, which is a little tricky. I don't know if I'd recommend it too much in your own games because it's just better to practice playing more straight up, so we won't pay a whole lot of attention to that. But yeah, Hero, his only job here is to make sure this tech transition actually works out. So right now he has +2 armor about to finish up, so it means his Zealots are going to take a long time to die, and his main source of damage output is Storm, which of course doesn't change by any armor or attack upgrades. So his upgrades are being more effectively spent by keeping his Zealots alive longer and by using his Storms to actually put out the damage for him. So okay, here we go. Hero sees this is an army moving out here. There's a lot of Hellbats, 6 Hellbats, a lot of Marauders, and some Vikings here. Now the Vikings, as we discussed before, are pretty much useless because the Colossus is never going to get touched by him. And that's basically dead supply. That's wasted medevacs that could have been produced off of there. So his composition is good for this army right now. Even though he's behind by 40 supply, it's still a good composition. So 4GG looking for a little bit of an attack point to go in at. And what I'm going to really focus on a lot this game is we're going to actually slow down some of these battles and note where the Templar are being positioned to fight this army. So again, Observer sees the medevacs being loaded up. He knows all about this drop. There's also a pylon here to be able to spot drops as well. So the vision for Hero is excellent. You can see everything around his base. So we'll see. Whoops, I don't want to take command. We'll see the drop coming in here. Colossus is still in the main, well away from the Vikings, so he'll have no problem dealing with that. Vikings have to come in here now and try to deal with this Colossus, but the drop is just so slow right now that you can still handle it. Now, I want to get to the point where we can start seeing these Templar do some work. And note how he always is going to be dropping Storms when the Terran is attacking at him. If you're trying to drop Storms, when you're chasing down an army, your Storms are going to hit your own units almost as much as they hit theirs. So if you can force them to walk into Storms, which you're seeing here, by putting your Templar in front of your army rather than clear back here in the back, land some Storms when they try to approach you, so that anytime they fight you, they're already going to be low on health. So look at how red these Marines are. If they were to commit into attack, one more Storm would just vaporize them. So Hero doing really well, holding this little attack off. Really hasn't been threatened whatsoever so far. But the storms are really going to be the biggest difference here. He only had to use one, and one storm pushed this whole army away just because he got a good storm off. So just be aware that whenever you have Templar out, it's good to spread them out against EMPs, but it's also more important to make sure that they deal damage at some point. And the best way to make them deal damage is to make the Terran attack into you and land storms as they move in on you. So we're going to see this again, probably quite a bit. No, it looks like Portuguese is actually just going to go home, so never mind. It's a different point in the game. Again, little counterattacks are attempted here, but there's not a whole lot going for these counterattacks. Hero needs to be careful and not split his army up. So Hero's going to start moving down here, going to maybe see if he can get a little bit, but no, the army's just too big for 4GG. He realizes that, he just has to go home. Moving back here, and again, we're starting to see a little bit of a tech transition once again. Now that 4GG is like, ah, man, those Vikings were wasted. I don't even know why I made those. Now he's going to start losing some Vikings in some of these fights, and you can start switching back into Colossus, assuming you just target them down with your Stalkers preemptively. But again, this looks terrifying. Hero's down by almost 50 supply. This looks really bad for him right now, but only because of his storms is he going to stay in this game. So again, he's just letting the Terran army attack into storms. That's exactly what you want every time. He is preemptively storming these Vikings so that his Colossus transition is going to be a lot better. And once again, these are little juicy armies for these storms that you can always land. And Hero is really doing very, very well against this. Marauder getting hung up to dry. Again, another Terran attacking into a storm here, and he can't continue to attack or else these storms are just going to waste him. So note how much Hero is just walking away from these fights and is dropping storms as he walks away. It's really helping him out here. And of course now he has to fight because he can't lose this Nexus. But still, he's trying to make the army attack into him, landing storms as they chase, merging an Archon, more storms. Now look at the supply gap. Where did that 50 supply go? All of a sudden it's only a 3 supply difference and Hero's in a great spot. So this is just kind of demonstrating that if you control your army properly, especially with storms, then you really should not have a lot of problems. But what I see more often than not with any league players, even super high level players, even Korean players, they will just walk their army forward and just storm haphazardly, and that's just really not how you get a lot of effectiveness out of this. Hero getting fortunate catching a medevac here. But now all of a sudden, let's take a look at the status of the game. Hero has +3 armor against 2/2 from the Terran, so his Zealots are going to be basically immortal. They're never going to die. And he has a lot of storms, a lot of Colossus out. There's not many Vikings, basically no ghosts. Hero's in a fantastic spot here, and should be able to just walk over him at this point. And again, more storms here. Notice how he's retreating his army, just dropping storms as the Terran is attacking into him, rather than the other way around. So I think he has a couple more storms in here, so he could continue to retreat if he wanted to. But at this point, the supply is like way in Hero's favor. So really shouldn't have too much trouble here. Now I'm going to fast forward for quite a bit, because we've kind of demonstrated everything that we want to in this replay, but obviously we do want closure, we do want to see these Terrans die. So Hero comes in here, again, storms, Terran attacking into his portion of the army, he's just going to land storms. That was kind of a messy one, not really any reason to drop that one, but if you're frugal with your storms, which is the whole thing we're getting at here, you can win almost any fight. So yeah, Hero just walking over this army now. Vikings are out, but it's way too late. These Colossus are just crushing everything. Now all of a sudden it's a 70 or 80 supply lead for Hero. And this game's pretty much over. There's not much else to see. You can see the timer is about to end in just a minute anyway. So, yeah. Lots of interesting stuff here from some really good Protoss players showing us how to play PvT. Do your best to mimic these, and just note that the basics that we covered in almost the entire video was hold off the Reapers, get some AoE damage, get information, and use your AoE damage and your other supporting units correctly. So that's pretty much how PvT can be broken down. Of course, as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. I do get to them every once in a while, but the interfaces for YouTube keep changing, so it's hard for me to keep up on who says what. But I'll be back with more videos, of course, as soon as possible. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.